welcome to the Meta League. I'm John as always, and it's time for another Top 10 Thursday. This week it is the Top 10 draft format that I've played. So this Top 10 list is going to be not quite as long as it could be. I've only played from Innistrad to now with a few other draft sets, mostly because they've come back online on Magic Online and I've played them. So this is only going to be draft sets that I've played about 5 or more times, so I kind of have a grasp on it. So most notably, Battle for Zendikar will not be included on this because I've only drafted it 3 times so far. Maybe it'll be first on the list. Maybe it will never ever make this list. Who knows just yet? So far it's going good, but we'll have to see. But starting right away at number 10, we have M13. Magic 2013, just a core set. But this was more than just a core set. It was a lovely, well-built core set. The mechanic of M13 was Exalted. As opposed to having some gimmicky mechanic like Slivers or a really simplistic one like Bloodthirst, this had Exalted, which really changed combat. It really made combat much more interesting. Creatures became very differently powered. You wanted some creatures with Exalted that would just hang back and wouldn't attack. I remember there was an O3 or something with Exalted that was really solid. It was just a really good set. It was really good, pure drafting. There was a solid legendary cycle with Odric and Yiva and Talrand. And it was also the last core set that I really enjoyed. Of course, I didn't enjoy Origins or 15 or 14, but 13 was pretty solid, and that's why it's here. It's the only core set to make the list at 10. At number 9, we have Dark Ascension / Innistrad / Innistrad. So Innistrad was drafted, of course, 3 packs of it. When Dark Ascension came along, a single pack of Dark Ascension was added. Innistrad, you've all probably heard, was pretty good, so it might be a little bit higher in this list somewhere. But even Dark Ascension, Innistrad still made it on the list. It was still good. It diluted triple Innistrad. It made it worse. That's why it's below wherever Innistrad is going to fall on this list. But it was still pretty solid. It added on to arguably the best draft format ever, with some really cool things. Undying was a really good mechanic. Unfortunately, Fateful Hour was not quite as good, and it did kind of hurt the archetype drafting that Innistrad was really well known for in Rise of the Eldrazi and other sets like that. But it was still a good format. It's still one that I would go back to if for some reason we weren't allowed to draft triple Innistrad. But it was still fine, and it still makes number 9 on my list. Next up at number 8, we have Theros. Theros gets accused of being boring quite a bit. A lot of people really kind of got bored with it. I think that's partly because it was a 3-block set. By the time Born of the Gods came around and Journey to Nyx came around, it was still Theros block, and we were still drafting a block or a single pack of Theros. And I think a lot of people really just got tired of it, myself included. But triple Theros was pretty solid. Triple Theros was very fun. It was kind of battle cruiser magic. It was kind of Voltron magic. You would get a big creature and then you would throw on bestow creatures on top of it and attack with it. But there was still decent enough removal around that you were able to kill those things, so it was risky. And there were a few other ways to build decks, like Heroic, made for a really wide, kind of aggressive mechanic. There was just some really good stuff built into it, and I think Bestow was a really, really, really good mechanic. They thankfully didn't make very many broken bestowed creatures. They were all relatively weak, but the fact that you didn't get blown out by putting an aura onto a creature was just huge. So Theros, I would go back to it. Not super one of my favorites. If this list had a greater pool of draft formats to pull from, this probably wouldn't make the list, but I still do like it enough to have it at number 8. At number 7, we have Return to Ravnica. I wasn't around for the original Ravnica block, although I have drafted it a couple of times online, but not enough to get a handle on it, not enough to include it in this list. It may have made the list. I'm not sure. I haven't had enough time with it. But Return to Ravnica was really good, and I'm talking about triple Return to Ravnica. I'm not talking about the block. I hated Gatecrash. I really wasn't a fan of Dragon's Maze. But triple Return to Ravnica I really liked. They solved the original problem with only having 3 guilds, or maybe 2. I think they had 3 in the original Ravnica. But in this Ravnica, they had 5 of them, which worked much better. Everybody kind of had a deck they could go into. It did kind of hurt a little bit that the other guilds weren't that draftable. You could, if you wanted to, draft a Dimir deck in Return to Ravnica, but it wouldn't necessarily work very well. There just wasn't the support. It was very rarely correct to go into something other than the 5 guilds included in Return to Ravnica. But those guilds were still pretty deep, and there was enough that 2 people could draft the same guild very readily and very handily. And it worked really well. I liked the mechanics. I liked the sets so much more than Gatecrash or Dragon's Maze. So RTR does make my list, and I would probably go back to it, which is interesting considering I would probably never touch Triple Gatecrash ever again. So Return to Ravnica, number 7. At number 6, we have a format that you probably haven't played in paper, but you might have played online, the Holiday Cube. The Holiday Cube is very interesting. It's technically called the Vintage Cube, but they never really got rid of the Holiday name for some reason. They even talked about it for a while. They said, we don't want it to be called the Holiday Cube because we want it to be sometimes in June, sometimes in February. It doesn't have to be at Christmas. But it is still called the Holiday Cube. This has the Power 9. This has the broken cards like Voltaic Key and Time Vault and those combos that you can potentially win on turn 1 or 2. Really broken stuff going on in Holiday Cube, but it makes for a really fun way of playing. Getting one of those I win combos is really fun to do. Even getting beat by them the first few times at least is fun because you have that story of, I got beat on turn 2 by this card that tapped for infinite turns, basically. There's still a story with the cube, and that's what I like about cube drafting of all sorts is win or lose, you kind of walk away with a story. You walk away with an experience. You can tell your friends about how it went. It makes for good videos for YouTube channels, for example. Legacy Cube might appear a little bit higher. Who knows? But Holiday Cube is pretty fun. And hey, what other times am I going to get to draft Moxes and Black Lotuses? Certainly not in my cube. Next up at number 5, we have Modern Masters 2015. I wasn't around for drafting Modern Masters 1. I was around and I bought packs of it, but I didn't actually draft it because it was a pretty expensive investment to do that. But I hear it was better than 2015, so who knows how this list would have shaped up had I have drafted Modern Masters 1. But 2015 was pretty solid. It had really good archetypes built into it, affinity, and there were even some archetypes that were discovered later on. There was that tokens deck that took the world by storm maybe 3-4 weeks into Modern Masters that was discovered, and that's the hallmark of sets that I really like is when people discover decks weeks into the format, months into the format. That typically identifies a good format to me because it means it's deep. It means there's a lot going on. It means that there's build-around cards and things like that. And that for me is what makes a good set. And that's what made Modern Masters 2015 such a good set. It was really fun. The price sucked. Having to pay $30 for a draft, probably with no prizes, was harsh. But it was still fun, and I did draft it 6 or 7 times. Some of those were online where it was a little bit cheaper, and I was able to kind of, fuel my my entry fees with my winnings. But yeah, it was a super fun format, and it gets number 5. Number 4, we have Khans of Tarkir, just triple Khans of Tarkir. Fate Reforged, didn't like it as much. But triple Khans of Tarkir, well, pretty recent, I think was really good. I don't know if it's just the primacy effect, if it's the last set that I played that I really enjoyed. Fate Reforged, Dragons, Magic Origins, those ranged from fine to kill it with fire for me. And of course, I haven't yet gotten into Battle for Zendikar enough, but I think it will break that cycle finally, I hope. But whether it's the primacy effect or not, I really enjoyed Khans of Tarkir. It was my first experience with a tricolor set. I wasn't around for Alara, which was tricolor as well. And it was really fun. They did it really well. I think Morph really saved that set. I think the fact that you could play these cards regardless of what happened with your mana base. If you were 3 colors, and you should have been 3 colors usually in Khans, you still could cast your Morph. If you had 3 mountains, you could cast your Morph. And I think that was a huge part of Khans of Tarkir. And I think that's what I was missing, especially with Magic Origins, is the fact that it was very easy to stabilize, at least on turn 3. Turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, if you stumble, you're going to be dead. But it was very easy to stabilize early on, whereas, of course, Magic Origins was the opposite, where you miss a 2-drop, well, good game. You may as well pack up right here, right now. But yeah, Khans was really good with Morph, with the multicolor, the flavor, the clans, everything worked really well. I really liked Khans of Tarkir, so number 4. Number 3, we have a big one, Rise of the Eldrazi. I have so much experience with Rise of the Eldrazi because it comes back to Magic Online so frequently. It's usually on Magic Online twice a year. It's widely considered one of the best draft formats, and it's exactly the type of format I like because there are so many archetypes to it. It's not just red-green. It's not just blue-white. Red-green has ramp into big creatures or invokers, or ramp even harder with Spawn into Eldrazi, Or red-green could also be Vent Sentinel. It could be Battlefield Ramparts. There's so many different archetypes within colors that it works really, really, really well. And it helps you discover different things. And a lot of those cards aren't wanted by other people. So for example, Vent Sentinel, which is a red card that taps and does damage for the number of defenders you have. Nobody wants that. Nobody playing red wants that card unless they're the Vent Sentinel deck. And so all these cards that you need for your archetype are there if you're in that archetype. Whereas with a much more normal set, a much more Origin style set or Dragons of Tarkir set, the good red cards, every red player wants them. The bad red cards, no red player wants them. And it makes for much more linear drafting and much more getting screwed up if you're sitting in the wrong seat or if players are taking things that you want, if you're getting weird signals or simply not reading the signals, things can go wrong. And Rise didn't really have that happening too much. It's a complex format, a really fun format, and it gets number 3. Also, Eldrazi. Number 2, we have the other cube on Magic Online. We have Legacy Cube. I like this one more because it's not as broken. There aren't really turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 win combos. You can actually draft a fair deck. I don't recommend it, but you could draft green-white creatures, or black-red aggro, or color-color creatures. You could draft a fair deck and still sometimes do okay. There are the archetypes that are going to, be much better for you to draft. The burn, the counter burn, Reanimator, Fraley's Ramp, Splinter Twin, etc. There are things you can do that I would recommend you try to do and learn how to draft these in the cube that make it much better. But it's just a pure drafting cube experience with a bunch of archetypes, a bunch of cards that are amazing in one deck and terrible in another, which I love, because if you get past a late pick, Living Death, well, Reanimator might be open. So you should take that and go into Reanimator. Whereas any other black deck isn't really going to want Living Death too much. It's just an awesome draft experience. It really helps you become a better drafter because you have to really analyze these cards that aren't meant to be played with each other. They weren't designed to be played with each other. So Legacy Cube gets number 2. Number 1, I'm sure, is no surprise to anybody. I've already sort of mentioned it because you haven't heard about Innistrad just yet. So yes, Innistrad is my number 1 draft format ever. It was my first draft format. Maybe that has some part of it, but I don't think so based on the consensus on the internet. Innistrad was amazing. Very similar to Rise of the Eldrazi, very similar to Cube. There were just so many archetypes and so many build-around cards. Cards that were bad in most decks, but in one deck were awesome. And so if you got them, you could really go off with them. Archetypes were discovered months into Innistrad. It was at least a couple of months that spider spawning, somebody realized, hey, if you do that card with this card and this card in this deck, you get an incredible, actually infinite combo that helps you win the game with a large number of spiders. These decks just appeared. People just discovered these decks. People discovered multiple uses of cards. Travel Preparations was an incredible card for such a simple rules text. There was just so much going on with Innistrad. All of the mechanics worked really well. Mechanically, the flip cards, Morbid, Flashback, they all worked really well. They also fit with the flavor. Innistrad had incredible flavor. Just an absolutely amazing set. I wish it came back to Magic Online more often. I've only seen it come back maybe once or twice in the past 2 or 3 years. It doesn't come back nearly as much as Rise of the Eldrazi does. But I would draft this every single time that I could. Every single time it comes back, I'm going to be drafting Innistrad. Number 1, top of my list, by far. So that wraps it up for my top 10 draft formats. Definitely let me know what I missed on this list, what you think should have been here, what you think should have been number 1. As I said, I don't have experience with much beyond Innistrad. If there's a set back there that you love, that you think is awesome, should Lorwyn be on this set? Should the original Ravnica be on this list? Let me know what you would have put on this list in the comments below. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at TheManaLeak. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. And you can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/TheManaLeak. You've already found me here on YouTube. You've got the comment section down below. Make use of that, as I said. And if you like my videos, you should click those little thumbs up icons and subscribe so you can see all the latest videos. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all next time.